My name is Corey Wilson, and this presentation will focus on the geology and history of Redwood National Park, Pinnacles National Park, their similarities and differences, and the impacts of climate change on their future. As shown on this map from the National Park Service website, Redwood National Park is located along the coast of Northern California near the Oregon border, and Pinnacles National Park is located 80 miles south of San Francisco, about 40 miles inland from the California coast. Redwood National Park was established on October 2nd, 1968, and includes areas protected by three nearby state parks established in the 1920s. The park is now jointly managed by the state and federal governments. This picture of the park from the Redwood National Park official website shows a grove of coast redwood, which are the tallest trees on Earth and make quality lumber. A vast majority of the existing redwood forest was logged before Redwood National Park was established. According to environmental historian Alfred Runt, from the mid-19th to mid-20th century, continued commercial logging of nearby groves undermined the bigger and more historic groves, leaving them vulnerable to flooding. Because of this, the park was expanded by 48,000 acres in 1978 to protect the watershed. The park is now a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and according to Jennifer Molidor at the Center for Biological Diversity, is home to over half of all old-growth redwoods. Redwood National Park is located in the North Coast Range Mountains. The tectonic plates involved in Redwood's geology are the North American Plate and the ancient Farallon Plate, which is now broken into the Juan de Fuca Plate. The Mattole Triple Junction, pictured here by the California Volcano Observatory, makes Redwood National Park one of the most seismically active places in the United States. According to the National Park Service, the oldest rocks in the park are ultramafic Josephine ophiolite from the Jurassic period, around 200 million years ago. In other words, while dinosaurs became the dominant species on the Earth, the Farallon subduction zone was creating the oldest known rocks in the park. However, the basement rock and most of the park is from the Franciscan complex, which was accreted onto the North American continent during the late Cretaceous period. Once these rocks were formed, they began to erode. During the Quaternary period, waves washed sediment up onto the rising seashore, creating marine terraces. According to the National Park Service, these structures were approximately dated using a 100,000-year-old clam fossil. Around 11,000 years ago, the Smith River cut deep canyons through the Josephine ophiolite in the north of the park and deposited sediment that later became sandy beaches and dunes. Judging by fossil evidence found in nearby Monterey County, the coastal redwood has existed in its current range for at least 2.5 million years. Another petrified redwood from the National Park Service website is pictured here. According to geology researcher Katie Keller-Lynn, coast redwoods are hardy trees that can, quote, resist fire, drought, and disease as they grow, unquote, as shown by this living coast redwood with a burn scar. However, the increased storm frequency predicted by the Park Service, when combined with the already landslide-prone geology of the Franciscan complex, could put these tall trees at risk of toppling from floods as they did before the surrounding watershed of the park was protected. Although the basement rocks of Redwood and Pinnacles were formed during the Mesozoic era, the history and geology of the two parks is very different. Pinnacles National Park was originally established in 1906 by President Theodore Roosevelt as Pinnacles National Forest, and 2 years later, a portion of the volcanic formations was established as Pinnacles National Monument. It was only recently reclassified as a national park in 2013. According to the National Park Service, the land in the Galabon Mountains, including Pinnacles, has been inhabited by Native Americans for over 10,000 years, who used to harvest acorns from the surrounding trees and grind them into flour using the rock formations. These mortars left distinctive holes in the rocks, shown here in a picture from the Park Service website. The basement rocks of Pinnacles are granitic intrusive igneous rocks, formed during the Cretaceous period. This unerupted, cooled magma was created by the same tectonic collision that created the basement rocks of Redwood National Park. In fact, the Mendocino Triple Junction that is now near Redwood National Park used to be all the way down by Los Angeles when some of the rocks in Pinnacles were formed. As the Farallon Plate subducted under the North American Plate, it moved north, leaving the San Andreas Fault transform boundary behind it. This tectonic activity led to volcanism. According to geology researcher Michael Barthelmes, quote, eruption of the Pinnacles volcanic formation took place during an episode of relatively intense volcanism between 24 million and 22 million years ago, unquote. Further volcanic and tectonic activity caused the rocks of Pinnacles National Park to separate from the rest of the Pinnacles volcanic formation and move northwards from where it was formed along the transform boundary, as shown on this map by former president of the National Association for Geoscience Teachers, Gary Hayes. These displaced rocks were covered by a shallow sea, protecting them from erosion, unlike the rocks they left behind. Because of this, there is a layer of shallow marine sediment on top of the preserved volcanic formations. Rainfall has eroded the formations, creating the region's unique talus caves that are home to bat species. According to the University of Washington, scientists can also use the opals formed in these caves to learn about how wet the ancient climate was. The eastern portion of the park is home to a few fish and bivalve fossils, but fossils are rare in the park because it is primarily composed of igneous rock. However, the environment of Pinnacles is crucial to the preservation of some living species. The critically endangered California condor was recently reintroduced to the park, and the small population, partially displayed in this picture by the Park Service, is closely monitored by the Park Service staff. According to ecological historian Alfred Rundt, President Gerald Ford approved legislation to designate part of the park as a wilderness, where no motorized access was permitted, which also helps to preserve plant and animal life. The natural environment of Pinnacles is delicate due to frequent intense fires, shown in this picture by the Monterey Herald. According to the National Park Service, controlled burns have been used in the park since the 1970s. This environment could be pushed out of balance by climate change. According to the National Park Service, changing weather patterns could lead to increased rainfall, eroding away the distinctive volcanic rock formations of Pinnacles in storms and flash floods, the same way that the rest of its formation was eroded thousands of years ago. Although the rocks of both California national parks formed by the same subduction event, Redwood and Pinnacles national parks are very different, as seen in these pictures from their respective national park websites. The geology of Redwood consists of layers of sediment deposited over an oceanic igneous basement, contrasting sharply with the violent pyroclastic eruptions that formed Pinnacles' stone formations. Both are at risk of environmental disruption from increased rainfall due to changing weather patterns. Both parks preserve habitats for at-risk species like the coast redwood and the California condor.